Hi guys, this is Mrs. Rutan. I can't be here today because of a sick kid, but I did want to give you guys some supports and ideas as you start working on your top 10 presentation for the Cuckoo's Nest. This PowerPoint should be located on Google Classrooms. Ignore the first two activities, which is about reading an article. We'll worry about that when I get back. Instead, what I wanted to do is talk about what the goal is for today and give you some strategies as you start working in your collaborative groups. So what I want us to think about is how can you start working on your presentation and hopefully get quite a bit of your presentation done today. You have the whole block. I will come back tomorrow, and after Test It Tuesday, you'll have probably a little bit under half of the block to work on it and also get some teacher conferencing. Just so you guys are thinking about this week, we don't have a lot of homework this week because we're finishing Cuckoo's Nest and transitioning into the next unit on Jane Austen. But tomorrow is Test It Tuesday and some final workshop time. Thursday and Wednesday will be dedicated to watching the film and taking notes. Friday, you guys will present your top 10 presentations. You'll have no workshop time. You will be expected just to have everything ready to go. And then Monday, you guys will be turning in a film response from Cuckoo's Nest, and we'll talk more about that on Wednesday. And then also we'll start doing some prep activities for Austen before we start reading. Moving into how to help you guys with your presentations. I want you to think about this presentation more as a lesson plan or as a teaching instruction activity as opposed to just presenting. It should be interactive, and it should really present something to your classmates that keeps them engaged and is a little bit interactive. So a couple things to think about. Please be visual. The more visual you can be on your slideshow, the stronger your presentation will be. Secondly, you definitely need to have a hook and a closing. A lot of kids forget the closing or their hook isn't really strong. So what you need to do is find a way to pull in your classmates, keep them engaged, but also find a nice way to close out the presentation other than just saying thank you, and keep that interest going. Make sure that your objective in the presentation is clear. That's your focus, that's your topic, and that's going to be your claim and argument. And we'll go back to my haters presentation because you can see my claim is pretty clear, and I actually reference back to it twice. And then finally, you have to have a second visual. A lot of kids do slideshow and they'll do like a handout. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I do want you to think about an interactive visual and also something that might be continuous, like you might use it as the intro and the closing activity. You might reference it throughout. For instance, I had students who you had to rank the patient's disabilities, and then they kept coming back and comparing the rankings to the classmates' handout rankings, which was kind of interesting and engaging. Make sure you teach something new, and please, please, please avoid the cliche PowerPoints. So let's go to the haters and kind of look at some different visual strategies that I use. And you guys can borrow these strategies and kind of mix them up. But if you notice, each slide, just clicking through these, they don't look the same. Each slide has a little bit of a different structure or a different idea behind it, a different craft device that makes it a little bit more interesting. So I did an interactive activity with a handout, if you guys recall. I had you guys look at, I think, like 5 or 6 quotes, and then gave you guys some thinking time, and then had you guys tell me. I did a collage of pictures to help illustrate the quotes. So that's my first opening slide. My second slide goes straight into my claim. So my objective for the presentation is very clear. I kind of gave you guys a teaser with the hate, and then I bring in the hate with my argument. It's a 2-part argument, which is I think he has a lot of hate, but then I tell you why I think that hatred exists, because of his insecurity. The other thing that you guys pointed out was you like the use of vocab, and you could see I even just playing with a different color. Super visual, even though it's text-based, but it's also just, it's a nice punchy slide, and my claim is clear and I can read it to the audience. It's not too much text that it's boring. So the next thing is, I don't know what this craft would be, but basically it's, I give some information, and then my next slide is present, but I use it in a lighter gray so you can't see it. And then what will happen is I jump onto the next one, and then the color of the font changes. It just helps bring up the wording a little bit, and it's enough of a subtle change in the text that the audience feels like it's more visual. Next, I have a very clear graphic. It's actually a graph It is from my outside sources, Psychology Today. I do play a little bit with some voice with my title. And this graphic is just nice because it makes me interactive with the audience. Like I had to stand and point out the different steps, and then obviously you guys remember I used the steps to shape up the presentation. My next visual is actually taken out of my book. I just took a picture. So making your own visuals could be a really nice way to show a graphic kind of quality. This is one of my favorite strategies. I do it twice, but I take a really nice big graphic visual and I put it in the background, and then I take a really short punchy quote and I highlight it up here, and I did a kind of more colorful highlight, and I put the quote on top of the picture, so it just helps illustrate or reinforce the text. I did the same thing right here. And then this one, I actually do 3 visuals. I do some like lots of sauce quotes to kind of help the audience, and I just move from image, image, image. So that was kind of a nice way to break it up. This one I played with a couple images side by side, and then I did a rhetorical question to keep the audience engaged. This one, once again, it's a graphic. So the whole purpose is as I'm presenting, I'm going through the graphic with the audience, or I could say to my audience, what do you notice? What's interesting? This one's one of my favorites. Yes, it's a Wordle, but also I just like putting the 2 images side by side for contrast. I like the color contrast, and it just allows my audience to kind of see a before and after, because usually that's what happens in literature with your characters. This one has a longer quote, but I think it's okay because the quote is really important. I read it to my class. I read the whole thing. So I'm not just like letting them read it. I read it together, and then the picture reinforces it. This is obviously where my analysis came in. And then to close it, I have a 2-slide closer, but my closing is a question for the classmates. It's a good question. You guys did talk a little bit about this. And then I put my claim up there again, and I didn't change it. I just copy pasted it, and I asked the class, do you feel like this is a good claim? And then this was really easy, but that was just a snipping picture that I used off the web. So there's lots of different ideas here. But like I said, if you look through, it's very graphic. I mean, just look over in these margins right here. There's still textual evidence, but if I put text on there, I'm going to read it. I'm not going to just let it linger or let my audience think about it. I really want to make sure I read it and talk about it. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. So make sure you revisit this. You guys have workshop. I am sad that I'm not there to conference with you, but I will conference with you guys on Tuesday. And then you do have the rubric, so feel free to start exploring the rubric today, and I'll definitely go over the rubric with you guys tomorrow. Hopefully by the end of the block you have some good ideas, and then we will be presenting on Friday. Thanks and good luck.